Hello everyone and welcome to this episode of Jig Retro, where we're going to be taking a look at a video game that I have absolutely no nostalgia for, but is considered a bona fide classic on the Sega Mega Drive. Despite being fortunate enough to have owned most video game consoles and played an awful lot of games in my time, there are some classic IPs that have slipped me by, the biggest of which so far have included the Metroid series and the Castlevania series. In this episode, I'm going to give another huge franchise a go and see if it can be one of my new favourite retro video games. This time it's Revenge of Shinobi. If you enjoy this content, then please take a moment out of your time to like, share and subscribe, as well as check out my back catalogue of videos. Although it never really felt like I was late to the Sega Mega Drive system, Sonic the Hedgehog had most definitely already been released by the time we managed to pick up one in our family. I'm pretty sure that Sonic was even a pack-in game for the system that we bought. Revenge of Shinobi had already been released for quite some time at this point, and me and my brother had missed the initial hype. I do remember definitely playing it relatively early in the Sega's life cycle, because I think I had it on one of those sort of multi-carts that they used to release, but I found myself playing much more Streets of Rage than anything else. I definitely remember giving it a whirl, but I was hugely put off by its difficulty and that slight backtracking bit that you do, I think, in the second part of the first stage. I've always been compelled by the amazing atmosphere that this game presents. This title acts as a sequel to the hugely popular original arcade release of Shinobi, and it was an opportunity for Sega to show off the Mega Drive's arcade quality capabilities. So here we go, this is my first real attempt at getting stuck into Revenge of Shinobi, and I'm looking forward to having a fresh perspective on what is considered to be a bona fide Sega Mega Drive classic. I'm really hopeful that this will be a brand new series of games to obsess over. One thing's for sure, I initially underestimated this game. After blasting through the first level with relative ease, I hit a brick wall of a second stage where I was eating up lives in the bottomless pits of the waterfall. Luckily, each time I played I found myself learning something, but because I quite rightly assumed I wouldn't get much further, I proceeded to give up and come back another day. My next run through was a bit more successful. I blitzed the first couple of stages in short order and didn't really start eating lives until the air carrier stage. But again, each time I died, I learned something. My next run, I even took down the air carrier stage with little in the way of lives lost. And I actually made it through another couple of levels with relative ease until that bridge and speeding train level. The pricks. Anyway, what I'm getting at is that yes, it is a brutally hard game, but the balance to you learning what needs to be done comes thick and fast. Quite soon I was conquering almost the whole game, and then they throw a door maze stage into the final level. Now don't get me wrong, I understand why it's here, and it is a common trope to extend the life of video games, but it really hasn't aged well for my taste. Save yourself all the BS and use a guide for this. Unless of course you feel like you need the punishment for some unknown reason. This is by far the worst stage in the game and should be just cheated through as quickly as possible in my opinion. Even the soundtrack in this stage is poor, which is a shame because the rest of the soundtrack is beyond stellar. It could be easily argued that this is Yuzo Koshiro's finest work, and this is the dude that brought us the Streets of Rage soundtracks. You just have to listen to truly appreciate some of this phenomenal stuff. Apart from the maze stage, then it is easy to say that a few of the stages cause you a lot of cheap deaths, but this is not necessarily the case. as it is at these times that you use your special ninjutsu abilities. If you find a gap that you can't make with your double jump, then there is an ability to help. Need to be shielded from attacks for a while in order to pass a stage? Then it's the lightning shield. Towards the end of the game, then the self-sacrifice special is essential for tough bosses. Although it uses a life, it replenishes your health to max and gives you another ninjutsu ability. In fact, I would argue that the most useless special is actually the screen clearing special, and that's the one that's most tempting to use often, especially to newcomers to the game. The crates in the game have other bonuses, including health, more shurikens, a power, which means that Joe, that really is the ninja main character's name, can block projectiles as long as he is moving forward, and a much more powerful shuriken and melee attack. Also, the crates have the dreaded bombs. These are another treacherous element to this tough game, but I like that the item placement isn't randomised, so you learn where these suckers are. The longevity and replayability in this game is fantastic. Not only is it brutally hard, but as said, it is quite fair, meaning that you feel yourself progress every single time you play it, which I think is fantastic. There are 2 different endings, which means that even if you get good enough to beat the game, then you're required to beat it again to see it all. Then you can tweak the options with different difficulties and starting with less or even no shurikens. Believe me, these can really change the game. Even as you get better, you find yourself using the ninjutsu special attacks less and less. I've got to the point now where I can completely break the game over my knee and use very little lives until the final stage. And then I either get eaten up by part 1 or the final boss of the game. It really feels great to run through this game just owning it. Then you get the reality check of the next big part to suss out. For the time, the graphics of this title were absolutely awe-inspiring. When this was released, most were still playing games on microcomputers or the NES. This truly gave the feeling of arcade quality at home, and it's games like this that made the system as successful as it was. So far ahead of its time. The megadrive was coming out of the gates firing on all cylinders with this one. Stunning stuff. Even by today's standards, I would say that it's hard to beat. Add a few more frames of animation and a few 3D bosses or environmental elements, then this could be taken for a modern, retro-inspired indie game easily. I feel that most gamers would like some more modern conveniences such as save states or unlimited continues, but this was a different time and it's just the way that Sega used to extend the life of games. These would have been expensive games at the time, and it wouldn't be great if everyone just smashed through it in roughly 1 to 2 hours of playtime. The positive is that with these games, each attempt at beating it doesn't eat huge amounts of your time. I pretty much got to the point where I could beat the game after about a week of attempts of a couple of hours each. Though the time commitment is definitely there, it's actually quite nice to start afresh for each attempt. I would suggest that even a relative novice would be able to get through the whole game in between 6 to 10 hours of practice. Mean Machine Sega would give this a review of 94%, and I think all in all that this score is very fair, both at the time and now with the amount of fun that I've had with it. One final element that I have to mention is the crazy bosses in the second half of the game. In the initial print run of the game, you had Rambo as a regular stage enemy alongside Jackie Chan, a Terminator and Incredible Hulk hybrid, Spider-Man, who also appeared in the original arcade Shinobi game, Batman, and frickin' Godzilla. Most were changed on later releases due to Sega not exactly asking permission to use these intellectual properties. The version that I'm playing is on the Mega 6 Volume 2 collection, and Sega had since gained the rights to Spider-Man, as can be seen by the acknowledgement at the beginning of the game. Somehow they got away with the Hulk Terminator thingy, but Rambo was changed, Batman was changed to a kind of man-bat thingy-majiggy, and Godzilla was changed to a gigantic skeleton version. It essentially plays exactly the same, but if you're precious about these kinds of things as a collector, then I would recommend doing your research in order to get the version that you want. As I think you can tell from this review, I have finally gained huge admiration for this brilliant title. and I really look forward to playing it more in the future alongside all the other games in this series. I do struggle to see how I'll enjoy Shadow Dancer and Shinobi 3 as much as I have Revenge of Shinobi, but time will tell. There will definitely be future episodes where I cover these games as well. Please feel free to comment down below on your experiences with this game as well as other games in this series. I'd be really interested to hear from early adopters of the Mega Drive who picked up and played this game on or near its initial release. It must have been a magical time. This game has rocketed into at least my top 20 and maybe even my top 10 Sega Mega Drive games. Until next time, much love, please look after yourselves and each other and get your geek on with Jig Retro.